Okie doke. Well, first of all, welcome everybody to what is going to be a firecracker of a performance here. Jacinta Gallant is a Canadian collaborative lawyer, mediator, and educator. And as I said, she's a firecracker. She's famous, she's engaging, she's funny, she's wonderful, she's insightful. She is all of those things. She's recognized around the world for her insightful and experiential approach to teaching and managing conflict. She has uh, a business called Our Two Family Homes that's really helps clients prepare to engage deeply and productively with us as peacemakers, mediators, collaborative lawyers at the table. And I'm honored to call her my friend. Jacinta is just a marvelous coup for our committee to bring you. So thank you, thank you. Jacinta has a podcast, which I'm sure she'll talk to us about.
No,
And
it's so funny. I said, Danita, keep the introduction short. It's so embarrassing when you're sitting here on screen and someone's talking about you. So thank you.
I'm keeping
my
it
love.
really short. I'm keeping it really short. So there's a podcast that helps us be the best we can be. And her ultimate goal is to help all of us engage with clients in a more meaningful way to this very, very important and critical work in our society. So Jacinta, welcome to the ADR committee. I'm so honored and happy that you're part of it today. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. I mean, honestly, if we were there in person, the tunes would already be rocking. But what I want to do is set it up a little bit with just something light. Tell me if the music doesn't come through.
It's really your word.
Yeah. You know, many of us have chosen a day job that isn't just advocating, but that it's being with people who are friggin' upset with one another, right? And for those of us in the family field, you tell me that you're leaving. So we've got people that are coming to us at a stage in their lives, whether they're mad at their neighbor, mad at their boss, mad at their person who backed into them, or mad at their spouse. It's a tough gig for us. And so thinking about the complexities of what we do, we as lawyers have to remember we're dealing with a lot of emotions. And they're conflicting because some of our clients have moved on.
I found a love.
You know, they're channeling Ed Sheeran and they're having so much fun thinking about this next phase. You know what? Those of you who work outside of family law, you know a good dispute, it's got the same emotions. And that sometimes people, our clients, they're kind of crazy, right? They might be crazy in love, or they're crazy in love with their idea or their position or their demand or their sense of what outcome we can deliver. And we're like, you know, it's a problem. And so we sometimes have to deal with the conflicts where someone actually thinks that, you know, we could help them walk on sunshine. It's that complicated for us to truly manage the emotions in our world. So we've got people who are looking for, you know, they're ready to be vigilantes. They want us to help them get revenge, right? Get back, do that whole thing, and really, hey Deb, we're playing Taylor. All right, so we've got all this going on, and sometimes we're as the professionals, sometimes we find ourselves on the highway to hell, right? It's seriously hard. When we really would rather be ascending the stairway to heaven, you know? It's friggin' complicated. And so I like to have fun with recognizing those moments when we are under a lot of pressure and we're trying to figure out how to work through it. Our legal training didn't make us social workers. We're not ace communicators. We're not, even though we wade into conflict all the time, we're not always that good at it. So what I want to do is take the pressure off. And this song, it's got this lighthearted thing, but it's called Sippin' on Feelings. So there's your playlist to get us started. what I want us to do is spend some time getting real about our day jobs, people. It ain't easy. And so I want to show you a few slides and then turn them off, come back to a discussion, show you a few more slides, turn them off, come back to a discussion. And I want to just start with the theme of this program, which is the problem with problem solving. So how often have you thought about, God, you asked me to help you and you're doing everything in your power to make it impossible for me to help you? It's so clear and simple to us as we're helping people solve legal problems. There's often so many other layers to it. And so I'd ask you to consider, how often have you met your own client's resistance to your really helpful problem solving efforts? So I want you to think of an example where you, as the professional, as the person who could help, meets strong resistance. And let's make it about you're getting the resistance from a client, because I know we can find lots of examples of resistance from our colleagues too, and our judges. But think of an example where you got strong resistance to your great idea, let's do this, or to your just ongoing efforts to be helpful. And I'd like you to think about, and we're going to talk about this, what was the behavior that sent you the signal, hey, there's resistance or defensiveness? And I'm going to talk about what did you do in response, and then what happened. So think of cases that you've been involved in as either the dispute resolution professional or the advisor lawyer or a member of a collaborative team. What was the behavior that you could describe now in terms of behavior that said to you, this person's resisting? Can unmute and share, please? Someone blaming you for the court order that the judge ordered and forcing the child to go with the other parent, like blaming. Clearly, sometimes language is not even subtle. It's like, it's your fault. What else?
Hands across the chest, refusal
Yeah.
to make eye contact.
Yeah. Body language, lack of eye contact. What else?
How about an email saying, I know you don't want me to sign this agreement until we make these changes, but I'm willing to agree to it anyway. That was this morning's email.
Got it. So they're like defensively saying, I know you're going to say I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. A little bit of a yeah, but. Yeah, but. Okay, what else?
Every conversation that you try and have with them, they're fighting back at you, and they're maligning the other parent, other party, and blaming them and blaming you, and can't see that they have to take some blame too.
So blaming others for everything. Yay. And you can tell that through their words. And what other things do we see? What are the other observable behaviors?
I had a matter where mom started laughing just this morning.
In a sort of in a sarcastic way or hysterical?
Yeah, like I asked, we were trying to figure, I mean, there's two other counsel on the neutral conciliator trying to help her with, she's recovering, and we're just trying to figure out Christmas, and she started laughing, and
yeah. Like,
nice.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, right, raised voice, elevated tone, energy. Yeah, Gwen?
Lots of barriers being put up to every solution. Like there's always a reason why that's not going to work.
Right, there's a reason why not. So the words will tell us that, but so will their body language, their email or electronic communications will be very much sending you the signal that, yeah, no. All right? And so when you think of those moments where you've got a specific example in mind, think about a time where things actually didn't get better before they got better. Things got worse before they got better. So, I mean, I can think of lots of examples. Surely it happens in Pennsylvania that a client comes at you with some resistant behavior and you do something and it makes it worse. Does that ever happen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or that they at least don't go along or pretend to go along and then they undermine it in some other way, right? We've all seen these patterns where we think we're making progress with these people who say they want us to help them, and then they seem to do everything in their power to make it hard for us to help them. And so since most of us are lawyers, and this is the Pennsylvania Bar Association, I want to also be really real about our challenges as a profession. I mean, our training is about having answers. And so give ourselves, if we can forgive ourselves a little bit, let's look at what we typically do in response to defending. All right, so typically we're going to see these behaviors. You identified most of them. And guess what? They're very similar to classic traditional lawyer behaviors. Raising our voices, sometimes interrupting, I'm going to say often. Justifying, I mean, persuading is our day job. Justifying our client's behavior is our day job. Repeating, yeah, but, withdrawing, leaving, not responding. I get that from other lawyers. Do you? Exhibit A, B, C, or even the reassuring pat on the head. Don't worry, everything will be okay. And then add to that the way we even address one another. Now in Canada, we'll say opposing counsel, or we'll use something silly like my learned friend when you know they're your damn enemy. So our lawyer behaviors are very nicely matched actually with defending and resisting behaviors. So keep that in mind. And because of our role, we typically bring a telling, explaining, informing, advising, guiding, doing something to steer response. Don't worry, I got it. Actually, the evidence supports this, and here's why. Or how about this? You really want to give them the reality check. No judge will ever order that. That's not going to happen. Oh, we tried that and it didn't work. Or I'll take it to the other side, but I'm not hopeful. Or calling clients out on their behavior. You're not being productive. I'm just trying to help. Does this sound familiar? So even when we're highly trained to work productively with people who are upset, when we face conflict moments, many of us get thrown off and we revert to our natural role of professional expert who's doing the telling, educating, informing, and guiding. And this is how that's interpreted by someone who's resisting and defending. And so the reason why being told or our telling, even when we have wise words, that's the best you can get, or it's really going to be better for you if you just sign this document because you agreed to it, right? All those things that we do in a telling response includes educating, informing, advising, guiding, directing, steering, explaining, reassuring, justifying, persuading, all of those things. And so we end up with responses like this. I certainly have heard many clients saying, well, you just don't understand how hard this is for me when I'm trying to persuade them to do something that I think is really in their best interests. Sometimes they're like, I'm out of here. Or I don't know why I thought you would want to help. Or fine, whatever. So I know if we ask, everyone could come up with 5 other things that we get in response. And so I want to share with you the neuroscience that supports our getting over ourselves when we're focused on educating and problem solving, informing and advising when people are upset and defending. Okay? So researchers have been studying the effects of curiosity about truly feeling wondered about. So when Lisa experiences me to truly want to understand her, she's going to calm down. She experiences satisfaction, security, and tension relief, which is the opposite of what Lisa is experiencing when she's feeling the need to defend. When she's feeling the need to defend, there's anxiety, there's a sense of threat, there's fear, and there's stress. And so this talk is about moments when we're reacting or responding to clients who are expressing this sense of threat. So the fun fact is that these are the benefits of curiosity, and the not so fun fact is that this is the impact of our clients or us experiencing a sense of threat to something that matters to us.
Hey, Jacinta,
yeah.
I have something in chat. Dr. Deb Gilman says that dopamine and oxytocin increase with the feeling understood.
Yeah. So it's truly everything our coaches and our psychologists and our collaborative neutrals that have the mental health background have been telling us for years. And now the neuroscience can perhaps help us get it through our heads because we're so used to being expert tellers. And so, yeah, it's a chemical thing. And the beautiful fact here is that this benefit is visited on me when I show a sincere desire to understand Gwen, I'm going to calm down too. So it's the most irresistible thing to add to your, I wouldn't even call it a toolbox, add to your workshop. A whole other way of experiencing moments of conflict, moments of tension, defensiveness that are usually grounded in someone's sense that something that matters to them is threatened. Okay, this is a lovely slide. Being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they're almost indistinguishable. And so Deb's information about the chemical piece of this translates into this the idea of human connection. And so when we're working with clients who are going through a hard time and we're working in the dispute resolution modality, then we really are engaging with clients in a way that's different from our advocacy role in litigation or in representation outside of a decision to work together to engage in a resolution process. Nonetheless, I still think the lawyer's day job is primarily handling people's challenges and helping them. And so I would argue that this isn't just for mediators, arbitrators, collaborative professionals. This is actually what lawyers do. We just don't call it that. And so I like to blame someone. I don't know about you. I want us to have a very close look at our dominant default to problem solving. And it really starts back with the first best alternative to litigation, right? The interest-based model that came out of Fisher and Urey's first book, Getting to Yes. I know you've all heard of it. Don't get it now. There's no point going back into the 80s to look at what this is, but this is where we came from. And this is strongly influencing everything we do as lawyers, as mediators, as collaborators. And we got to pay attention to the underpinnings of this model. So the Lemon model is something that I'll get to, but I want you to look at the key principles of this model are separate the people from the problem, focus on interests, not positions, generate options for mutual gain, win-win, and use an objective criteria to evaluate those options. So of course, the idea is some people learned an orange metaphor. I like the lemon metaphor. And that is that if you had two people fighting over the only lemon that's left in Pennsylvania, it's the last one, and you got two kids fighting over it, if you let them compete for it, you know, one will win, one will lose. So that's your classic litigation win-lose approach. If you go straight to compromise, you'd slice the lemon in half and each would get half. They might be mutually happy, mutually dissatisfied, right? And you'll often hear our judges talking about the best they could do would be make sure that people are equally dissatisfied with an outcome. I mean, it's weird what people think the justice system can provide and how limited it is. And that's why you're here. But let's remember, this was a great advancement from litigation and positional bargaining. It also said that then, therefore, if you could understand the needs in relation to the lemon, you might find that someone needs the peel and someone needs the juice. So then you truly have win-win. And actually, if you lived in the right climate, you could get the seeds and grow a lemon tree. I mean, that's a whole other world. So with that in mind, contemplate your recent experiences using a model that's so focused on problem solving. Really? Like separate the people from the problem? I just don't. The people are the problem. They consistently are the problem. Not in a like you're an idiot way. Their relationship is what led them to our offices because there's something that's broken and they need to resolve it. So they are in fact part of the problem. So separating them out doesn't make sense. Focusing on interests, not positions, is a really good step when people are ready. And many of us have experienced times when clients are ready to explore what is important about a certain position they're taking so that we can uncover what Fisher and Urey called interests. But lots of times they're like not interested. No, I'm so focused on me right now. Generating options for mutual gain. Yeah, I've seen that work. I've seen it not work. And then I love this one. Use an objective criteria to evaluate options. So those are those cases where we say to the clients, well, this is what the law says. And they say, okay, let's do that. I mean, like we wouldn't have jobs if the objective criteria for outcome was going to satisfy our clients. But I'm not saying we throw this out, but we need to look at the foundation underneath the common and default model we're using to resolve disputes. And so it's also important to look at the theory. So the way the interest-based approach defines conflict, it kind of is about the lemon, right? It's about the incompatibility of what I want in relation to the lemon and what you want. And so the problem solving shifts on trying to figure out a way to maximize win-win. And when you really do have someone who needs the peel and the other one that needs the juice, enabling them to shift away from positions to understand needs, it works. We know this. It's just it doesn't work enough of the time. It's based on an individualist social theory. It came out of your country, which is so strongly grounded in individualism and assumptions around rationality. And that is the way. There's nothing in any way wrong, except that this, when we're dealing with people in relation, can sometimes lead us to assume that people will make rational decisions to maximize the outcome for all, even when they're feeling emotionally really upset with someone and wanting that vigilante shift or revenge. And so I say that those of us who work with anyone in any dispute that has a relational piece to it, coworkers, suppliers to companies, insurers, husbands and wives, husbands and husbands, teens and parents, all of those conflicts that we navigate, in fact, are not well served by this model until people are ready. And so how obvious is it to us sometimes? Oh, I mean, we could have solved this case yesterday if they would just get on with it. We could be making lemonade, we could be making some lemon zest and putting it on top of the icing and then having a party. And yet, they resist. So, I want to invite us to really think hard about how our default model for negotiation, which is really a problem-solving model, that's why I want us to just think about this as our jobs as problem solvers, sometimes lead us to wonder if we're doing the right thing, or to drive people towards rational problem solving when they're emotionally not ready. And for those of us doing separation and divorce work, it's almost always that the clients are not emotionally ready, at least in the beginning of our work. In our best work, they're getting there, but they're hardly ever there in the beginning. And so they can often feel that we're pushing this down their throats, and we might be doing that elegantly. We might be doing that in a way that is kind and sensitive, but our model drives us down that path. I want to introduce you to a different way of looking at it. And so the Insight approach to conflict was created by a Canadian professor, Dr. Cheryl Picard at Carleton University, who was a mediator and someone who grew up as a mediator in the 70s when everyone was fairly self-taught. So she was doing some restorative justice work, but was also doing mediation. Eventually went on to do her doctorate and focused specifically on what's going on when I'm mediating anyway. Like, what is this thing? She explored the interest-based approach because she knew it and thought that that's what she did. And she's like, no, that's not really what I do. Then she looked at what the narrative mediation people were doing and what the transformative mediation people were doing, and sort of settled on, well, not quite. All of those pieces make some sense in the work that I do, but I don't think that's what I'm doing when I'm mediating. And so she created this insight mediation and insight approach that focuses on behaviors. So those behaviors that you all know so well, that we talked about earlier, and began to explore how insight, that is, how do we come to know something? Can we take an insight approach to understanding what's going on? And so she created a definition of conflict that I know makes a whole lot more sense to me, because how often are we saying, it's not about the lemon, right? It's not about the couch or the cottage or the schedule, it's about something else. And so Cheryl defines conflict as a pattern of behaviors that emerges when what matters to me is threatened and I defend. And so if you think of the classic client resistance, as the client is defensive towards me, I provide an explanation, or I urge them to do something that I think is in their best interest. I come back at them without meaning to make it worse, with something that leads them to think, you really don't get me, or you're really, or leave me alone, whatever that is, so that we're in a pattern of defending behaviors. I'm defending, you're defending, I'm defending. And so if you think of a classic argument, we know that what's absent is listening and learning. So this definition of conflict then is embedded in all the skills and strategies that we would use as insight mediators. But we look at conflict as an ongoing pattern of behaviors. And we get curious about, I want to understand this behavior rather than I want to contain it. I want to direct it. I want to make it go away. Okay? And so the way we work as insight practitioners is to try to generate new insights through having conversations that will reveal and manage the threats that are getting in the way of having a good discussion and figuring out a way through. And so pay attention to this quote and think about how it resonates for you personally and how it resonates for you in terms of your practice. Teamwork, work with clients, and relationships within your family and friend and work group. If I feel threatened by you, and by threatened, I could be insulted by something you said or didn't do. It offends me. I can't listen to you. I can't learn anything new. And our clients and we become very certain about what is going on. We make meaning of this moment, and I'm certain it's because you're out to get me, or you're dismissing me, or you're not valuing me. And so in insight, everything we do, and it's productive and effective because of the power of curiosity to calm in response to the impact of threat, which leads to all this disruptive behavior. Everything we do in insight is to engage with client or clients. This works at home and it works with teams. To understand the threat that's leading to the block and then work with it and understand it. And so to give you some examples, we talked about the behaviors. So we need to know that if you notice these behaviors, stop telling. It doesn't work. You could save so much time just by not moving to a telling response, which is truly going to be interpreted as another defend. And then we want to notice by noticing the behavior and not attributing anything to it except noticing, this behavior is signaling to me that someone is resisting, is feeling defensive, okay? And then I'm going to go back to the not so fun fact. The impact of threat is that stress, anxiety, and fear dominate, and Deb Gilman can explain how that truly cognitively impairs us. It actually makes us unable to connect with heart and mind and really think clearly. So what should we be curious about? We want to be curious about what is feeling threatened that matters so much. And when I use the word feeling, that's for me to explain to you, because a sense of threat is a feeling, because it may not be a fact. There will be times it is a grizzly bear on the trail and you want to do something about that. Other times you have a perception of threat that isn't real. It's based on a misinterpretation of circumstances or meaning, and so much of it is contextual and based on the relationship you have with this person. So the very act of noticing and wondering is going to calm your brain down. You're going to get clearer, and you're going to be able to make a choice about what to do that helps. And then what we understand about threat from Cheryl's work, she will say, the behavior is a reaction of a threat to care. And she developed the word care or cares to include values, interests, all the things that we know motivate people to do or not do what they do or don't do. And so where you'll see individual cares or values would have been what we were originally taught to be an interest. Okay? Substantive things, needs, concerns. And those of us in the family law field have had to take the interest-based approach and add something to it, because we know it's more than just the schedule, just the lemon, just the line item. And so when relational cares are feeling threatened, and that's what we call them, to say that they're at that level of identity and how I want to be treated and how I perceive you when you act that way to be undermining me. My identity could feel very threatened by your decision to end our marriage. Your inaction or your action tells me I'm not valued. We can feel threats that are so internal. And I think in our profession, we feel this a lot. My core values are not consistent with the way I'm behaving. And so when we can have a conversation about what's feeling threatened that matters so much, we can unearth these threats, verify if they're real, if they're perceived. And there's a number of insight strategies that are so effective and productive that we're able to manage the conflict moment more efficiently without containing it or calling out a guideline or telling people to smarten up. Okay? So we need to get comfortable asking about fears and concerns, asking them early, asking them often, and not leaving it all to the coach. Because when we're acting in the lawyer role, our clients are depending on us in a way that's quite different from when we're acting in when our mental health professional coaches are working. And so we need to know that you don't have to have a graduate degree to ask people what they're concerned about. What are you worried will happen? Those kinds of things. And for God's sakes, as lawyers, we need to ask shorter questions and do far more listening. And so I'm gonna stop the share for a minute because there's so much to this that I want to have a chance to answer questions or hear comments, knowing that there are some simple things that I want to invite you to reflect on and begin to apply so that you'll be leaving here with some sense of satisfaction, security, and tension relief. Any questions or comments at this point? So when you think about the challenges that you have in your practice, whether it's your dispute resolution practice or your advocacy practice, how does this definition of conflict and this way of looking at the work that we're doing resonate with you? Does this start to make sense for what's going on in the room? Gwen?
Upcoming meeting with grandparents who are clients, and they helped the father of a baby file an emergency custody petition against their daughter who was leaving. And this resonates so strongly right now with me because the temporary order actually says father and grandparents will come to a written visitation schedule because the daughter had been living with them and they had
right. Yeah.
And they actually have written agreements as exhibits to the custody petition that grandparents will have rights. And grandparents said the legal word intervention scared father and his mother. And so there's so much fear going on one side that this legal ramification will cause an overreach, and grandparents are fearful that there's a pullback going on. And so the fears that are going on, I'm going to have to negotiate as the lawyer in a meeting with all 4 of these people on Monday that I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to sit and listen to everyone and hope that there's a way past all of this fear that we can come up with a schedule that is regular for the 11-month-old child.
It's so hard. And so Gwen, if you take a problem-solving approach to that meeting, if they're not ready, if they haven't had a chance to even understand that what they're doing is they're reacting to a very understandable, human, natural sense of a real threat. And for those of us doing family law, wow, are our clients feeling threatened? And so if you go straight to, okay, well, what can we do next? Or maybe if that doesn't work, why don't we try this? And yet the word intervention, even the word custody, if you still use that, is a scary, scary word. And so I love that you're bringing up both the how this notion of what's going on helps, but also the language that we use, especially in the legal system. We're so used to it, but our coaches are like wondering, why do we have to use that terminology, right? Because it's in and of itself, it's threatening. Being in the legal system is in and of itself threatening. And so, yeah,
Well, if I
Michael.
may, I just want to quickly interject something here is that, by training, we lawyers are trained in logic and reason. We are not, many of us feel uncomfortable, at least in our training, to deal with emotions. So when you talk about, don't be afraid to ask about fears and concerns, that cuts against our profession as a whole, that, primarily alternative dispute resolution people have more familiarity with that. But every single one of us went to law school. We did not go there to get in touch with our feelings.
Yeah.
And so, this is diametrically opposed to our training as a whole. And so I like the fact that you brought that up, to lean into the emotions and the fears and concerns and seek to understand that.
Yep. Thank you, Michael. So I want to be really, really, really appreciative of that. And I actually, as a legal profession, I call bullshit. If your kid falls down and scrapes their knee, you'll put a Band-Aid on it and you're not a trained paramedic. If you're going to touch relationship dispute resolution, either get someone who can handle the emotions or get out of it. And so I say that, but I also say this isn't about going to grad school to learn how to do more than what lawyers can do as human beings. Okay? So emotional intelligence, some of us have a lot of it, some of us have less of it. And when I use the word, you'll notice when I was talking about people are reacting to a feeling that something that matters to them is feeling threatened. And I said, watch the word feeling, because so many of us are afraid to ask about feelings. So let me just share this slide and then we'll come back because I want to hear from Moores. My next slide is, whoops. Oh shoot, I took it out. Forget it. My next slide was, but don't ask, how do you feel? Right? So we don't have to go straight on to how do you feel. Do you think when our clients are facing bankruptcy, they don't feel fear, concern, and feel threatened? At the level of identity, there's shame, there's all kinds of things in a commercial context that are going to impact them. They've got worries about their families, about their ability to pay bills. It's very much like a divorce, yeah? And so I want us just to be clear, because I would litigated for years, I've performed in the courtroom dramas, I get all that. But I know that once I began asking more than telling, I learned a whole lot more about my clients' concerns, fears, and even their hopes. And so I just ask things like, what are you most concerned about as this is our first meeting. What are the things that you're most concerned about right now? That's, some people like, what's keeping you up at night? How are the kids doing? Rather than, how are you going to make that mortgage payment? What worries do you have about finances? And so these are things that if you just use about 8 words and ask, for the most part, the client's going to feel the experience that I showed you with the curiosity slide. The client will experience you to really want to know them. And it doesn't have to be in a weird or inappropriate way. We know that showing empathy to other human beings requires really healthy boundaries. And so the reason I wanted to call a little bit of BS on it is that I actually think that we can ask all these questions. It's a matter of, will we listen to the response? Or will we flip, oh, yay, at least I asked the question, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? So as a professional problem solver, I began to notice how annoyed people were over time with my persistent fixer mentality. And it happened at the same time I was dissatisfied with my law and mediation and collaborative practice. So in 2016, I took time out after a case that I thought, a collaborative case where I thought the clients were not served well by a really great team, except for one member of the team who was bullying and cross-examining and really not very collaborative. So what I did was I really just transformed the way I work, and that led me down this path of studying insight. And so that led me to reading a book called Practicing Insight Mediation. I'll share all of this with you guys after the fact, by Cheryl Picard, which led me into a direct mentorship with her because she lives on my island. And then I know many of you, I've been a trainer in this field for many years. I began shifting my interest-based training because I was a true believer to, wow, that works when we're ready to problem solve, but it doesn't work when we're not. And so over time, we figured out a way to help lawyers, financial neutrals, mediators, and mental health professionals all get on the same kind of page around what are we doing when we're doing this work. So having a definition of conflict that looks at patterns of behavior rather than being able to diagnose a personality disorder is, all I'm doing is noticing behavior, and I'm making a choice about how to respond to it. That's intelligent, that's theoretically sound, and that doesn't mean you have to go to grad school and learn psychology. Michael, thank you for bringing that up though, because it's often a big question. And what about this? I also think this is BS. Lawyers are trained not to ask questions that we don't know the answer to. I mean, that's just a cliche, I think. I mean, we're always asking questions in the right environment. That may hold true in a courtroom, and even then. But our day job is managing the human beings that come to us for help, and they've got emotions. So I often wonder if we imagine, what song did they hear on the radio or on their playlist just before they walked into your office? If they're channeling Adele, hello, like they're listening to sad songs, or they're like walking on sunshine. We have got to be able to manage all of these complexities no matter what. And I think lawyers can do better. I think we actually have lots to give because we're comfortable wading into conflict. We might not like it personally, but when we're representing, we're good at that. So adding some skills that give a reasonable definition of what conflict is anyway, and adding some strategies that can be used really effectively is what I've been doing for the last 6 years. I've developed a course called The Curious Mediator, which is all about insight mediation. I've worked with so many of our colleagues, including Deb Gilman, in trying to really convey to our profession that there are some simple skills you can learn to kind of roll with resistance, to work with conflict. But as long as we're trying to put a new tool into an old toolbox, an old model toolbox, we're going to just be going like, oh, we're just tinkering with what we do. I think of the insight approach as being, it's the next paradigm for conflict resolution. It doesn't negate or dismiss the work of the interest-based folks, narrative and transformative. It just says, this is kind of bringing it together. And guess what? Bill Urey's new book basically says, yeah, don't read Getting to Yes. Because he coming from an anthropology background, having engaged at a young age with Roger Fisher to develop interest-based, like he says, yeah, it's better than what we had, but we need to do more listening, less telling. So when I listen to his book, I'm like, good, Michael.
I can just interject a little bit.
Yeah.
You talked about a song. I think most clients come into the office and they're thinking about Annie Lennox's Walking on Broken Glass.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that, so many times as lawyers, when we ask a question, just in general, I think society does this in general, is that when we ask a question, we're not really asking to listen. We're asking because we've already formed the response that we're going to argue and, to rebut.
I know. You are so right.
It's so important to just ask the question and really think about listening to the response rather than already formulating your response to what you think they're going to say.
And our training does make it hard for us to do that, Michael. So how often have okay, I remember after I did my first mediation training, I was a better litigator. I was paying far more attention to needs, concerns, fears, and hopes. I was paying far more attention to engaging with a judge in a way that would help us figure out a better solution. Do you see? And so what I would invite us to do is start to look at how we can bring our listening, because we're good at analysts, we're good at analysis, we're good at gathering information. We already have so much good skill as lawyers. If we actually thought we didn't know what the right answer was for once, the relief to us is huge. The impact to the client is high. So I'm struggling to look at the chat and engage. So I'd rather you unmute and just ask. A mediation approach can service all types of mediation. Okay, so one of the questions that Gwen asks is this insight approach appropriate in sort of all contexts? So let me just say this. If you imagine just being a far more productive person in every aspect of your work, because when you notice conflict behaviors, defending behaviors, you're able to manage it both within yourself to be grounded and solid, and with the other person. Not in a patronizing way, not in a, oh, I know what's going on for you way, not in a labeling way, but in a truly wondering way. You're going to be so much better at everything you do, including your interpersonal relationships, because people are tired of the fix. How many times have you experienced something very emotionally difficult? Okay, all of us, all genders. And in expressing that worry, that fear, that sense of overwhelm, someone you trust, comes in and sits down beside you. And you are personal, this is personal. You're feeling what do you want from that person who came and sat down beside you? What do you want from them?
Comfort.
Usually to be heard and understood.
Right. So the
Right?
reason I asked is I usually try and mostly do transformative, but I
Yeah.
read 5.5 Paths through of Mediation by Tara West. And I
Yeah.
found that my mediation approach changes based on the parties in front of me and what they seem to need. Because sometimes with parties, transformative, they're just looking at you like, what the hell
Yeah.
are you doing? I need more direction than this.
So Gwen, what I want, yeah.
Yeah. No, so
Yeah,
I
so
tend to switch in and out of things depending on what's needed. Like
Yeah.
if they are talking about
yeah,
equitable distribution, they need more, or child support, they need more, but custody, they need less from me because they have a lot to talk about and I'm just letting them have their conversation.
so Gwen, there's nothing in insight mediation that would do anything other than make you more effective. Lots of you
So-
may not know what the transformative approach is, but when you think about it, it's really just, what's the definition of conflict? What's your operating system here? If our
These
operating
layer
system,
approaches is what I'm saying. It's not
Yeah.
like your one mediator approach, you're
No.
a layered human. So you have all of these different layers. So it's not like I'm an insight approach mediator or I'm a transformative mediator. I'm a multi-layered mediator
yep,
as I
absolutely.
use all of these approaches just
Well,
at
most
different
people
times.
only use one. And I'm going to say that what I love about Insight, having studied all the others, is that it actually just explains all of them. And so it actually is more of a funnel for all of these things. There is a time for problem solving. How will you know? You'll notice that there's no more defending and people are ready for a discussion.
Right.
You'll notice that, that the whole idea of the neuroscience, if someone's defending, they're blocked from learning something new. So we're going on and on about explaining the potential distribution, blah, blah, blah. And they're defending and we're like, what's wrong with you? I'm just trying to explain. So we try again and they defend and they don't listen. And so what happens when we have the right definition of conflict, looking at patterns of behavior and defensiveness, I now know when the client's receptive and wants my help. And I don't have to guess, because the behavior will tell me that they're calmed and they're ready to receive. Leanne?
One of the things that keeps jumping up in my mind that is certainly a very big personal challenge for me is I feel I really can wrap my head around what you're saying, and I feel like I can do what you're talking about. I think I kind of mediate, and even with my own clients do that, but there's a shift that I have a hard time with, which is there's only so much time, or there is literally there's a conference or a court date, or there is a deadline, there is a something, or money. Like they don't want to do this for like hours on end because it costs money. And so it's sort of like, it's great to have that of holding with insightfulness, if you will. But then there has to be this shift.
Yeah,
and it's a challenge.
So you've just led into something that Zanita said I could talk about. So I just want to say that I was worried about that too. By the way, I don't want to just be persuading you to see things my way, but I do want you to know that we save so much time, because coming out of Insight, I created Our Family in Two Homes. And so what our clients get, I'll just show you briefly. This is the preparation tool. Deb Gilman's using it. We've got people in 9 different countries using this, so that the client is prepared on their own time, on their own dime, and that they're ready for dialogue. Because
separation, every family has
Can you hear it?
fears and similar questions, and yet the answers to those questions are unique to your family. Our Family in Two Homes can help. It's a highly effective resource that combines the knowledge of an experienced collaborative lawyer or mediator with a comprehensive workbook. The workbook brings together legal information, practical tips, and exercises that help you discover what's needed now, but also what might be needed in the future. So that if you're raising toddlers, you'll need to address certain questions around safety and nutrition. But when those toddlers turn into teenagers, you'll need to make joint decisions about curfew, cell phone use, social media, even values around what it means to be a good citizen in the world. And if your children are now adults, this resource can help you approach the many milestones you will share with them or with your grandchildren. Our Family in Two Homes helps you prepare for your work with your lawyer or mediator so that you have the right support and guidance to make good decisions and reach agreement. It's about respect. Respect for you and for the future you want for your family, respect for the choices you will make, and respect for the important role that your lawyer or mediator can play in helping your family through a difficult time.
And so once we started using Our Family in Two Homes, because I created it for only my practice and now it's around the world, clients now just make an inquiry to us, and they either get Our Family in Two Homes workbook, Our Family in a Few Homes if they have adult children, or if they're looking for prenup or relationship mediation, they get Designing Our Future Together. And so we created this entire global community called Our Family in Two Homes. And so it took me studying Insight to create something that would elicit reflection with exercises that clients will actually do. When I give them the homework, they actually do it. And so I just want you to know that I've only got an hour, and I didn't want to make it all a promotion for Our Family in Two Homes, because I wanted to also share with you what I think is a deep paradigm shift for us in the dispute resolution community to begin to look at what is it we're doing when we're doing this work. But I too, Leanne, was worried, because I work with clients who have a lot of money, and I still want to help clients that don't have much. And so everything that we do in my law firm and now with professionals around the world is that the client has this guide to prepare them. And you would not believe the difference of my 90-minute initial client meeting, of what I learned about their values, about how they make decisions, about their communication style, about how they approach conflict. And so that was the trick for me. I will tell you, Insight is more efficient. We just don't waste time on the things that constantly keep coming around. We address it and we deal with it. We, as lawyers, can have far more confidence when our coaches tell us we need to slow down. We can perhaps meet our pressure need to get things done by understanding that, in fact, our coaches are right and we don't need to push all the time. But also, consistently around the world, clients who are using these client preparation tools, because they're based on insight, they're asking questions, they're not telling anything, except here's the Pennsylvania law on parenting, just summarized, but you can do what you want because you know your kids. Think of these questions. And so I did all of that because I wanted clients to come to meet with me and to pay for my services. And I wanted to deliver a higher level of value. And that's what I do now. So that's how I brought insight together with client preparation together with my mediation and collaborative practice. And insight is at the heart of it, because when clients are invited to go explore and discover on their own time, on their own dime, I never in 4 years have had a client that didn't do it and that didn't say, wow, that really helped. So even buttoned up types, business types, different genders, different roles, different people. Every time I think, oh, this person won't really engage, they surprise me. Okay.
Jacinta, I have a fun question.
Yay, fun.
We're getting to the end. If I want to post one short sign over my computer to remind me to take the right approach, what language would you use?
What language? Well, I'd use English. So I would put notice and wonder. Okay, I came down this path. Any of you that were at the Vancouver ICP conference the last time, I don't know, 12 years ago, maybe, I don't know when it was, I was doing a workshop on shifting from judgment to curiosity. So I had to go experiment with curiosity. And the only way I could do it was notice when I was making assumptions or judgments. And then I decided to add the words, I wonder. I didn't know anything about insight yet, but that very step was taking a huge shift in the way I saw the world and the way I approached things. And so insight simply formalized it and took it way deeper, but made it more effective. So notice behavior, stop telling, and ask a question and listen. It's remarkable, right, Deb? Like, it's truly remarkable. And you'll notice it in your personal relationships. Mary Beth.
I had the pleasure of being in one of your workshops in one of the forums. I don't remember where it was, but it was all on insight. And it was a lengthy workshop. And I was, like I am today, sitting here with bated breath, trying to suck in as much as I can.
Yeah.
And it was changing. Definitely.
Thanks, Mary Beth. So we've since really developed a very comprehensive insight mediation program. We're in the middle of it right now. It's called the Curious Mediator. This one is 10 weeks, once a week for 3 hours. We're doing one for therapists and coaches starting in January. And the next one for lawyers and financials will start, I think it's in March. I put my website in the chat. I'll tell you, we're having a lot of fun, Mary Beth. You know how those early trainings, I was still learning myself. And I'm still learning, but boy, have we nailed it down to some real strategies. I've got a whole workbook that takes what Cheryl's book says and makes it applicable to our day jobs. So I would really invite you all to explore that. I'm also going to be bringing insight mediation and conscious contracts together. If you haven't explored conscious contracts yet, you might like that. Check it out on my website or email me to find out more. And then the whole idea of shifting and transforming the way that we approach this work is simply life affirming, and it fits. I'm going to just tell you, I was at the Canadian Institute for the Administration of Justice group last week, a national conference on family law reform with judges and lawyers only, and they were eating it up. Like, judges want to understand what the heck's going on in my courtroom. And while our coaches know this, because it's what they live and what they studied, it relates to what we do because we're wading into conflict all the time. And I just feel like, I swear I do this with I'm like, phew, we want to feel that relief. It's on you, man. I'm like, you prepare, it's your life, you're going to live with it. I don't say it that way, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm no longer responsible for fixing everything. Right? And I swear we're more efficient and more effective by noticing when there's some resistance and using a different strategy that is more of a listening approach. So,
Jacinta, you are just awesome as usual.
oh, Zanita, thank you. Well, I really love this work, and I really, really value the work that we do as lawyers. And I want to dispel the stereotype of the jerks who are lawyers and help us. Like, we almost have to heal ourselves away from, don't ask a question that you don't know the answer to. Like, who likes a know-it-all lawyer? Let's be honest. Who likes a know-it-all lawyer? I don't have any friend, so no one likes that. So with this approach that's theoretically grounded, you can actually begin to be more human in your work and bring your values in alignment with your work. And I know you're already doing that because you're choosing this work. But it has made a profound impact on me. Profound, since 2016. So if you're interested, just love to invite you to participate with as a mental health professional or as a lawyer or financial neutral. It is, I'm not just saying this, it's the next paradigm. It really is. And it's going to give us a sense of wholeness again in our profession, because we will not have to become social workers. We'll just become people who are smart about how to manage conflict moments. We can do that. We really can. So
Jacinta, thank you. Thank you.
thanks for having me.